Hey there everybody, how's it going today? That's Carpo again. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about cannabis. In fact, I came out here, I have 3 different lists of notes that I wanted to talk about on videos. And I went right to something completely different, which is weed. And let me just say first off that, I've been disappointed with the legal cannabis industry. I don't talk about cannabis very often at all. But cannabis is a huge part of my life and has been for a long time. I felt guilty talking about it years ago when I first started my channel because it was illegal. And I thought I could get myself in trouble. I had a bunch of plants growing. Even though I had a legal card to grow it, I had a channel that was dedicated to growing just weed. And I turned that into my philosophy channel eventually. But, when I was smoking cannabis heavily when I was younger, I learned a lot about it. I was obsessed with it. I wrote about it in high school for my junior report, just out of my head. Didn't even really do any research, and I still got a B. But something's happened to the industry, and this is what I figured would happen when it got legal. Am I surprised? Absolutely not. But there is so much bullshit in the industry. So I'm not here to talk about weed itself, but to talk about all the bullshit and all the crap that's being sold to you. As a lot of you are new to cannabis, and cannabis is something that I've myself been smoking for about 27, 28 years now. So I've been around, and I've seen a lot of different cannabis, a lot of different products, and eased back over recent years on how much I smoke. I've learned to really pace myself. And I've learned a lot over the years about what works and what doesn't. But the one thing and what inspired me to make this video, well, for example, I actually had these capsules that I made a couple weeks ago. Now, I took some cannabis that I'd grown in the past. I processed it with a QISO method, which is quick wash isopropyl alcohol. I'm not going to go into detail, but I did a quick wash. I evaporated it off, then I baked it in order to basically cook off at 240 degrees to cook off the what you're doing is decarboxylating it. You're converting the THCA into THC, so it's orally available. Then I combine that with half coconut oil and made these little capsules, and they're pretty strong. I took 2 of them earlier to test it out, and I was like, wow. And one of the beautiful things about capsules is that you have the whole plant extract when you do an extract like that. Now, there are many different methods to doing extracts, but then we have what I buy in the store, this little pen tip, which is THC distillate. Okay, has a beautiful taste. It's called Maui Wowie. I'm thoroughly disappointed with the fact that it's just a synthetic flavor, and that's what you get usually when you're smoking this. When you're buying these pens, you're smoking synthetic terpenes, or even if they're plant-derived terpenes. Let me just kind of backtrack a little bit. If you're not aware of what terpenes are, whenever you smell cannabis, the smell is the terpenes. The smell are the different fruity smells, the different berry smells, citrus, which is limonene, or then you have myrcene, or the kind of nutty or nutmeg type smells. So many different odors that you can get from cannabis. And naturally, there's an association with those odors as to the buzz. In other words, some lemon haze, which is a nice sativa, might give you a really cerebral, enlightening buzz. Whereas some myrcene-soaked, heavy, spicy indica, really dense nugs of some pure hash plant, might give you a really relaxed, what they call a couch lock or a couch high. But it's not that simple. That's just the general quick stoner, this is good for enlightening, this is good for being low. It doesn't work that way. You go into the shop, you can buy a sativa, you can buy an indica, and sure, you might be likely to have those effects. But when you get into extracts, you're talking about something totally different. And that's the main point I wanted to make. When plant's in its whole form, you're still getting a variety of different cannabinoids, not just THC and CBD, or even CBN. And these capsules, for example, have a lot of CBN. And CBN is only produced when cannabis gets old. When cannabis starts to age, certain molecules start to degrade into other molecules. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to talk briefly about why eating cannabis is different than smoking it. When you smoke it, the THC is absorbed by the lungs, it goes into the bloodstream, and it has a short-lived effect, an hour, couple hours, few hours, depending on how much you smoke and what you expect. But when you eat it, it takes about the same amount of time to come on as most people end up wearing off when you smoke it. In other words, it might take an hour or two in order to take effect when you eat it. And when I eat these capsules, it might take an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how much I've eaten. Now, each one of these capsules has about 100 milligrams of THC and 100 milligrams of CBD combined. But it also contains CBN because that was processed as a whole plant extract. All the cannabinoids came out. When it comes to this is what they call a THC distillate. That means that they basically reduce all of the plant material down to a perfect extract. Then they remove just the THC from that. And then what they call backblend terpenes, which means they add flavors back to it. And this is really the main premise of this video. I'm very bothered by the fact that the cannabis industry has slyly just started pumping terpenes into THC distillate without anybody asking questions, such as, is this a synthetically derived extract, like some of the raspberry ones are, because it costs a fortune to extract, a certain raspberry flavor, so they do it synthetically. Are these synthetic compounds healthy to inhale? But more than that, I'm not as concerned about the health aspect as I am the fact that people are saying, this is an indica hash pen, and this is a sativa hash pen, when the only difference is the flavor that they have added to it. So here's what I'm saying. We have two identical products. You have one they're most likely extracted from the exact same batch of cannabis, because it doesn't matter what strain it is. The sativa or indica aspect of it is by what they name it. Maui, Wowie, Northern Lights. And they do this by adding certain flavors that they think would be conducive to that strain. And the people say, wow, this is delicious. Tastes really good. Wow, It's like mango, and it's delicious. It's very tropical. I really like it. It's delicious. But the buzz, flat. And it all comes down to this. It's placebo. I believe that when you're blending terpenes into THC distillate, any effect that's a sativa or indica-like, or high or low, is placebo. If it were as simple as just terpenes, then that would change a lot of the foods we eat. But it would also mean that, do you really have to buy this? For example, could I just take any old THC and then smell some peppermint to get the same effect? And believe me, as an herbalist, somebody who's fascinated with herbs, and I love essential oils, I've experimented with this. Tried to smoke cannabis and try smelling different essential oils, because the same molecules you're absorbing into your bloodstream, whether you're inhaling them or smoking them or consuming them, and I would think that if you're smelling a very strong oil, you'd probably inhale even more molecules than you would smoking it, because some of them get destroyed in the process of vaporizing or smoking. But let's not get into the technicalities of it. We don't know. And this is coming from a veteran stoner, as I cough, of 27 years. That's not bragging rights. That's something that I figure I'm obligated to talk about this. This is important that I tell people that they're getting totally bullshitted by the industry. And all I've talked about is just one little thing, terpenes. I haven't even got into the salves, the lotions that they want to, that you can just rub it right on and you'll be healed from all your internal illnesses. I know they're not saying it that blatantly, but basically people believe that they will be saved by rubbing CBD on their skin. Now look, CBD and THC, phenomenal compounds. Rubbing them on your skin topically is only good if you have something that helps it absorb. And that's why a lot of people use like arnica, I believe. You can also use essential oils, but it's only good topically and what they call regionally or locally, which means that if you have a sore muscle in one area, sure, you can rub a salve and a lotion on there. You can include some CBD and THC, whatever you want, and that might help. But really these things are being oversold and overplayed. Huge marketing companies are buying into this, and giant companies are consolidating all of what we've always known as our comfortable little cannabis community. I'm not surprised, as I said. It's just like what happened with, look at alcohol, for example. Look at what they've used to sell alcohol. Chicks in bikinis and speedboats and people happy and dancing and, you know, just this total bullshit idea that you're going to be the socialite of the world. Go back and look at cigarettes, you know. I mean, there's a cigarette called Cool. You know, people really believed that smoking cigarettes made you look cool, and they were able to advertise to that. And so my point being that anything that we do, any substance we consume, will be, you know, shown to be in some sort of a kind of, you know, an association. People will want to be like, I want to be like that. I want to be that guy or that girl. I want to be that cool person. I want to smoke cigarettes. I want to drink alcohol. And with cannabis, they've turned it into the same thing. And I've always been a respectable person when it comes to cannabis. To say, look, some people are predisposed to have psychotic episodes, schizophrenia, delusions, depression, severe anxiety. These are the people who should not be using cannabis, in my opinion. And people may say, whoa, you could use cannabis for anxiety. It's great for anxiety. Look, when you grow up and you smoked it for a really long time and you really weigh where your anxiety comes from, you might find that cannabis can make it worse. It's all about the dosage and the right strain. But today's cannabis is very strong, and it does tend to lean towards just being very high potency THC cannabis, which to me is kind of a disappointment, because fuck, I love these things. You know, a couple of these capsules, half CBD, half THC, and then they've got the CBN, and who knows what other cannabinoids. I don't recall, but I believe there's something like 35 to 45 cannabinoids in cannabis, that lesser known cannabinoids that we don't even understand how they work. And many of these molecules can help us with it. For example, CBN, it turns out, is the one that's really good for helping people with anxiety, with eating problems, or, you know, people who need to eat more, build up an appetite, and for sleeping, and for pain. The four main ones that a lot of people take cannabis for. And the only way to get it is by aging your cannabis. They haven't found a way to convert anything to CBN in a hurry, because it's an oxidation process that does take time. So basically you leave your cannabis semi-exposed to the air for like a year. I would say a lot of the weed on the shelves in the stores is probably already there. One of the things is that THCA converts into THC over time, naturally. But they hurry it along by doing what I mentioned earlier, the decarboxylation process. But some of the cannabis I have is so old that you can probably just eat it as is. It's already converted most of it over. I make these caramels, or did for a while, that were phenomenal. It takes about 15 minutes to make them, and the temperature, all the conditions of making them means I can just take my cannabis, put it in a crock pot, make butter, can take that butter, strain it, turn it right into these caramels, and they cook just long enough to decarboxylate the cannabis in the caramels, and these things were really strong. If you go in the store and you buy candies, usually they're regulated, or any type of cannabis food, it's usually regulated by milligrams, and 10 milligrams is the average dose. And if you buy a package, they are usually 10 candies or 10 cookies, whatever it might be, and 10 milligrams each. So in other words, one of these capsules is the same strength as a package of 10 candies that you buy in the store. But it's great for people who don't consume a lot, who don't know how to dose, their proper dose. In other words, if a person who would never smoked cannabis before took 2 of these capsules, like I did earlier, they wouldn't even be able to talk probably. We all adapt to the substances we consume. And to me, cannabis is nothing. It's child's play, if you will, when it comes to drugs. But I take it very seriously, because I know that a lot of people take it too far and they smoke way too much. And I take it as a very serious medicine, something that's strong, something that can overpower people. So be cautious. I'm going to leave with that note. Don't abuse cannabis. Don't go out and use it on the account that I'm mentioning it here. I'm definitely not suggesting it's for anyone in particular. I'm giving you my personal experience, and I have to say that. It's a harm reduction thing. I want to see people use these substances safely. And I've been saying that for a really long time. And I'm really glad despite all the things I mentioned, the negatives about the industry, even though they're selling weed with naked chicks, it doesn't matter. The fact is that people are generally using it responsibly. There have been no major rises in crime. In fact, crime is probably going down in many of the southern states. Once they start legalizing, and watch how this happens, the cartels are going to lose ground. What's happening now is the cartels are desperate down there. They're trying to buy up houses and grow on the legal market as a cartel or as a group, criminal group, organizations. They're trying to keep up because once it's legal, there's no market for the crime anymore. And that just shows you that the drug laws failed in this country. And I've been saying that my whole life. But I just felt like it was falling on deaf ears. Like Americans were just never going to go for this. But I always knew in my heart we'd legalize cannabis. And I can't believe how fucking far we've come. And then last month, they decriminalized mushrooms in Colorado, or in Denver anyway. Wow. Things are really changing. And to people who don't consume either of those, they might think it may seem like the rantings of a druggie, but I really don't care. That's not how it is. There are a lot of people who benefit from these substances in immense ways. And cannabis is just one of many substances that should just be left alone and legalized. I understand that we want a government to protect us from these dangerous drugs out there, but you have to realize it's a decision of adults to consume. And if we are going to ban substances, which I don't believe we should, I believe that at least we should leave the ones that are in their natural form completely alone. That includes cannabis, psychedelic mushrooms, kratom, truffles, things like this. So as far as the market goes, it's going to do what it's going to do. We can't stop people from telling you that, CBD is going to cure your cancer overnight. We can't stop the market from people. For example, I had a company send me a product the other day, and a lot of you might know on my channel, but I figured I'd mention it for those who didn't. Guy sent me an email. He said, "Hey, I have a separate CBD video that has like 100,000 views or something." And I always get these emails about, can you get good CBD products? And I tell people the truth, because it's called the CBD Ripoff Report. And people are like, yeah, I've experienced this. People are charging, $50 for 50 milligrams. And, there's a lot of ripoff out there. And then you have to wonder if even what they say is in the bottle is in the bottle. And a lot of them have been reported to not have the right content of CBD. And then you find out that CBD isolate doesn't work for shit on certain conditions. And I know that's Greek to people who don't know the mechanics, but put it this way: CBD in its natural form, within plant material or bud form, with THC, along with THC and other cannabinoids, can have a much higher threshold of effect. In other words, a lot more can accumulate, I guess, in the bloodstream and have more of an effect on tumors, this type of thing. But when you take CBD by itself, it's just an isolate. It hits a peak and it just drops off, and that's it. This was discovered recently, about last year or the year before, by a team of scientists in, I believe, Israel, but you can look it up. I don't want to get into the details, but it's fascinating to me. These are things that we need to realize, that you need to know what forms you're taking. So anyhow, this company sent me this email saying, will you review this CBD product on your YouTube channel? And I told him straight out, I will, but I'm going to review it honestly. And he told me it was a pure CBD product, and when it got it, it said hemp oil or hemp extract. And I emailed him, and he's like, "Oh, well, it's the same thing. It's just different because it's from this hemp." And I just was okay. I'll try it out. Tried it for a week. Didn't really notice anything. Checked it out online. The stuff was $129 a bottle. Fuck. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm sorry. I don't care what company you are. I don't care how good your fucking product is. If you're charging $130 for a product like that, I'm dumbfounded. I can't believe it. It was less than a gram's worth. And yeah, it is what it is. People are going to charge what they can charge. I want to see people get this medicine, people that need it. I have had a ton of CBD cannabis at my disposal in the past, and I gave it away to anybody who wanted it, always, because if you can benefit from this, I want to see people benefit. A friend of mine gave it to his dog in pain. I gave it to my dog. People have given it to their dogs who had seizures and kids with seizures and helped them to eliminate them. And they're afraid to speak out because a lot of parents are using it illegally in states where they still won't accept these substances. So really, I'm a major cannabis advocate, and I just wanted to get that out there if that ain't obvious already. And to know that, you know, for all the people who think that it just completely destroys your functionality, you know, bullshit. I've been sitting here vaping on this thing, and before that I took 2 of those capsules. I mean, put it this way, you hear about the functional alcoholic, and everybody has a friend who can drink and still, like you think, if I drank that much, wow, I'd never be able to function. It's nothing to be proud of. It's the fact that a person knows their limits. And when it comes to cannabis, it's the same way. Once you've adapted to it, or smoking cigarettes. If you've never smoked cigarettes and you had one, you get a buzz and you feel like shit. You might fall asleep or pass out. Well, if you smoke cigarettes all the time, it's just a normal part of your life. And with cannabis, it's the same. And it's a matter of personal decision. Do you want that in your life? And does it benefit you? And what I'm saying is I don't want to encourage anyone to smoke cannabis who hasn't already. Somebody who doesn't know their body, doesn't know their mind. Because it can actually hinder you. And if you're not intelligent enough to know when to stop, and know when to stop yourself, then, you know, use caution. Cannabis isn't very self-limiting. Some people just smoke joint after joint and never stop. I mean, I can't give you an amount of what's normal. I might smoke, I guess if people are going to ask, I might smoke about 1.5 grams to 2 grams a day myself. Maybe. And, that may seem like a lot to some people, and to others it's like, that ain't nothing. Of course, you always hear these rappers talking about how they smoke a pound a day. Every one of them is completely full of fucking shit. Just wanted to put that out there. Nobody smokes a pound a day, and if you do, you're a douchebag. So, nobody even smokes an ounce a day. I mean, you might be able to take an ounce of cannabis out and smoke it with all your friends, but a pound is 16 ounces, so, I mean, come on. It's all talk. Anyhow, I just wanted to get that out, talk a little bit about cannabis. I'm hoping I will get into my next video, which is about muses, amusement, music. What else do I have? That's about it. I could talk about cannabis all night. I have several books and about cannabis, about growing, the Cannabibles with all the different strains, and I grew for many years. I grew a strain called White Shark, which was my favorite ever, and I'd love to talk about different smells of cannabis and textures and flavors forever, but I really started out with that main point when I started making this. The idea that those flavors that come natural in the plant, thank God I remembered this before, because this is the main point I wanted to make really. Those flavors that come natural in the plant, those terpenes, it's my belief that those aren't what give you the effect. So this is why backblending terpenes back into extract isn't the answer in my belief. It's not that those terpenes combine with the THC or affect you because of them themselves, but rather they are indicators that other cannabinoids are present within that plant. So in other words, a plant that tends to be more lemony might be a sativa. One more spicy smelling might be an indica. Not always, but that generally there's a lot of smells where you can generally tell smells and textures. And it makes you wonder if it's something else in the plant, that the terpenes are just indicators. I hope you follow what I'm getting at here. That even if you remove those terpenes from that plant, those other molecules are the active ones, because cannabis is so interesting. Nobody's been able to pin it down yet. The whole industry has been trying to figure out, they want to pretend they know, but they don't know why certain buzzes occur with this strain and not this one. Because when you look in a lab report, they have the same amount of THC, the same amount of CBD. And then they try to extract both of these or all the cannabinoids and then isolate them, and then they find out it doesn't work by itself. It's not the same buzz. It's not the same feeling. Ask any cannabis smoker, you know, what is the most well-rounded, just kind of kick-ass high? Is it extract? If you were going to take one hit of extract or one bong hit of really high-quality, top-shelf cannabis, the answer is obvious. If it was all about extract, people would just smoke extract. The high quality cannabis has something within it that is very undefinable, difficult to replicate, and I don't think Mother Nature is going to reveal her secrets all that easy. So maybe it's just the all-around experience. I don't know. Be well, my friends. Peace and love. Thanks for listening to me ramble about cannabis. Be safe. Don't take any of my ramblings here as advice to start yourself. That's all I got to say. Be smart. Peace.